This is the SimWorks Studios Pilatus PC-12. This particular aircraft actually comes in several liveries. One of which actually there is the five-bladed version and the four-bladed version. I chose the four-bladed version just because I like it a little better. Now, here's something you might want to find interesting. So right now, this close, you see all the static elements. You've got your pitot covers, your exhaust covers, held on by the blades. And then here you have your window cover, your glare shield or sunshade. That's it. And watch this. Back out a little bit, and then you see the pilots. So now you see them, now you don't. Anyway, I just thought that was something kind of interesting. So this is the outside. Of course, it's well rendered. SimWorks Studios did a very good job of this. So I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so we're going to go from there to the inside. On the inside, here you have the uh, windshield cover, glare shield, whatever you want to call it. And in order to get this off, basically what you do is you click on the windshield and it goes away. This away from me out of here too. There we go. So, oops. So, now that you have those, you still have some things there because the next thing you have to do is you have to remove the flight control lock. And then everything goes away. So on the outside, we should be clear. There should be no static elements. There we go. There are no static elements. So from there, I'm going to say this. I have the Pilatus PC-12 flight manual from Pilatus directly from the website. I downloaded it. And I also have the manual that comes with this piece of software. I'm going to tell you, the manual that comes with this piece of software is pretty thorough. It's not very long. It's 65 pages. If you're serious about this airplane, I really suggest you read the manual. It also has a checklist. And the beauty of it is when you install this airplane, it gives you the option of putting those manuals on the desktop so that you don't actually have to go to the community folder, then move it out of the community folder to have access to it. The actual flight manual is about 1,100 pages. So I will have it available, of course, a link in the comment, not in the comments, but a link in the description if you're interested. Another thing you want to know about this is these little things here. I don't really know what they're called, but I know what they're for. What this actually does is it tells you what the optimum seating position is. So you look at the white ball. If you see the blue ball on the other side behind it, then you're either too low or too high. So in this case, you'd be sitting too high. Of course, here is too low. So as long as they're in line, you are seated at the right height that you should be seated in order to use a cockpit optimally. So this is where you should be sitting. That way you're viewing all of your flight instruments like you should be. So the next thing I'm going to do here is we'll go ahead and get rid of that. Whoops. Okay, so I got rid of my yokes. I usually do. From here, when you look at the circuit breakers, they all are touchable. So you can actually actuate these, which is good when you want to, of course, practice emergencies. You can even actuate oxygen. There's your Hobbs meter. Actuate your clock. So pretty much everything on here can be actuated. Let's see. This also comes with a Also comes with a tablet. I'm going to see if I can cut the tablet on. For some reason, my tablet doesn't come on. I'm wondering if this is for the aftermarket tablet because when I installed it, you do get the option of installing aftermarket or making this compatible with some aftermarket accessories like the GTN 750 from PMS. Now, I have it, but I didn't load it because I was hoping that maybe if I was lucky that you can do a hot swap, once you have the airplane loaded, but that does not seem to be the case. So if you have any of those aftermarket software already loaded and you want it active on this, you need to load it when you install you need to let software know when you install it, you need to choose the options to um, make this compatible with that aftermarket software. Otherwise, you're stuck with the 430 and the 530. The back seat, and I've got people. So I have a lot of people back there. Yay me. Hope they're comfortable. Okay, so from here, we're going to go ahead and start the airplane. The airplane actually starts pretty easily. There are going to be some checks in here that I'm going to just skip because of the time constraint. I don't like my videos to be real long, so you'll see some enunciations on here. I think pusher is one. You have to do a pusher test. The manual explains exactly how to do that, and it does work. I did toy with it. I'm just not messing with it right now because it does take a while, and plus I'd have to call the checklist, etc., etc. So I'm not trying to do that right now. All right, so let's go ahead. One thing I can say is that I have the Alpha Flight Yoke and Bravo Throttle Quadrant. This does work well with that. So that's a good thing. Life gets a little easier. Go ahead and turn our beacon on. And from here, we're going to check, make sure we're going to have fuel. Take our condition lever. Put it at flight idle. Throttle to flight idle. Once we have that set, we'll hit the starter. Okay, and the FedEx system. Starter's off. And we have a started engine. Let's go ahead and turn on our avionics. Get started without a hitch. Turn our ACS. This is going to go away eventually, and you have to do the pusher test to get rid of this enunciation here.
Fire, fire, fire.
Okay, so we've turned on our transponder, turned on our navigation. see what happened when I did that.
EGPWS system OK.
All right, so since that's all done, we have a nice start of the aircraft. So today we're going to fly from Kilo Sierra Echo Tango KSET, that's St. Charles Smart, to Kilo Bravo Lima Victor, which is Mid-America over in Illinois. So it'll be about a 15-20 minute flight. We're going to explore the flight characteristics and take it for a ride, see how we like it. With all turboprops, when you let this brake go, when you let the parking brake go, you gotta be ready, because these do, all of them seem to do this on Microsoft Flight Simulator. They taxi pretty fast. It seems they do it in real life too, from what I hear them taxiing on the airport. That I hear them hit the reverse thrust, or the they call a beta range, all the time to slow down. And if you haven't seen my shorts, you'll notice that I'm also at an airport a lot. So there's a lot of airplanes. The PC-12 is shown a lot. If you want to see a real PC-12 taking off and landing, different liveries, different paint schemes. So you can check out my shorts and you'll see that. All right, so let's go ahead and park brake and get on the brakes. And now I'm going to go ahead and spin this around, so I don't want to go into grass. Check something. I'm using ForeFlight for my actual navigation as well as these two. And what has happened is that I did not connect my iPad to the computer. So let me go, I'm going to do that real quick. If you have ForeFlight, all you do is you go to your devices supported, and then you should have this piece of software called Flight Events. Just double click on Flight Events. Start flight tracking. And now that's connected, I show up at KSET on the map. So that's where the airplane is. So now I can continue my taxi and use my safe taxi on my flight, my ForeFlight. Like I say, you got to be careful. This does start to taxi fast. My frame rate is actually pretty good on this airplane. You know, sometimes some airplanes slow your frame rate down, some don't. This actually is pretty smooth. So I'm not really having that issue. And set myself 15 degrees of flaps. Fifteen degrees of flaps. 15 degrees of flaps is the takeoff setting for the PC-12, according to the manual. off so I can look around freely. Okay, and we're gonna take off. And we're off. Gear up. Flaps up. Okay, there we go. The one thing, I have this caution here. One thing you have to be careful of is overspeeding the airplane and different flight controls. So when I brought up the flaps, I brought them up right outside the white arc, and evidently it didn't like that. I believe that's this is for. My gears up. So, okay, so the next thing is that this particular airplane, you need to make sure that you do not have full power for more than 5 minutes as you're climbing. So I'm going to bring that back a little bit. And this does climb fast. We're already at 3,900 feet. And if you descend too fast, it'll start screaming sink rate at you. So like with all single engine turboprops, you have to stay on it because it can get away from you pretty quick. You can bust airspace really quick if you're not careful. There's a sink rate.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
I want to
Sink rate.
fast because I'm
Sink
actually
rate.
breaking airspace. So
Sink
if I
rate.
were,
Sink rate.
uh,
Sink rate.
following FARs like like I do when I run the piston engine airplanes, I would be in violation. So something to know. We'll go ahead and get on course.
Sink rate. 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 Sink rate.
Yeah, 1,900 feet.
Sink rate. Sink rate.
And we're going to get turned onto our course here. The thing about turboprops is you gotta
Sink
definitely have
rate.
to think
Sink rate.
ahead.
Sink rate. Sink
Try
rate.
this out.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Something about turboprops, you really gotta stay ahead of.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
One thing I do know, evidently this thing glides like a brick. Right, so nice straight and level. We have a really nice autopilot, although we're not going to be really using it because simply, like, we're not too far from our destination already. So I'm going to fly this manually. I can tell you this, it does fly pretty well. And it just does. Now, if I compare this to the TBM the TBM is 850, I guess, from Black Square, and the Coronato's PC-12, I would say that the TBM actually flies closest to this, and I think they're both just as immersive. So, if you like single-engine turboprops, you can't go wrong with either one of them. The Coronado is a little easier because you just don't have as much to deal with because they don't let you actuate everything, so it's not as immersive. So it really does depend on what you're looking for. If you're looking for immersive, those two will get it. Coronado, if you just like, you don't need a whole lot of sophistication, you're not trying to study a PC-12, you just want to fly one, and you don't need all the immersion, then
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
You're fine.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Let's see if I can trim this for straight and level without it descending and without it climbing. That's one of my tests that I do when I'm flying a new airplane on Microsoft Flight Simulator, is the ability for it to, with no adverse weather conditions or no winds, that's how I have it set up, does it trim and will it hold altitude without climbing or descending? The just use of the trim. In this case, it can. But you do have to stay on top of it. Like right now I'm descending, I'm also turning. What I'm expecting is when I get done with this turn, I would like to be able to trim it straight and level and not have to fight with this. Okay, so I think it's the calibration of my flight yoke, but it's having a tendency to bank left. And with that tendency to bank left, it's also trying to climb. So I'm going to put some trim in it to bring the nose down a little bit. See if I can't get it to stay trimmed out. Level. If I can push it. Figure out how to push it. Rudder trim here. Elevator trim. Well, not elevator, aileron trim. Goes up, goes down. in here somewhere. I just don't know where. All right, well, that being said, go ahead.
Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate.
Yeah, that's an overspeed warning. Slow this thing down a little bit. Back to our 200 knot indicated.
Sync rate. 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 Sync rate.
Things happen fast here. So in the manual, I'm quite sure it tells you where the aileron and rudder trim are. I just don't see them here, and it's kind of hard to look and keep this thing straightened up at the same time. So there's that. Other than this right turning tendency, which I do believe is my flight control.
Sync rate. Sync rate.
Frames out pretty good.
Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate.
Right, so we're looking at Scott Air Force Base. We're going to go and do a left entry for a 3-2 on the other side, 3-2 right on the other side, which is the civilian side. Oh, this is Scott Air Force Base right here. This is where we're landing over here.
Sync rate. Sync rate.
Yep, we gotta get
Sync
down,
rate.
gain some altitude.
Sync rate. 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 Sync rate.
Okay, it's off to our left. Turn our base leg.
Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate.
And we'll slow this thing
Sync
down
rate.
so we can put out our flaps. enough for that. There's our runway.
Sink rate. Sink rate.
So a little bit over 1,000 feet per minute will get you a sink rate call out.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Like I said, this thing evidently flies like a brick.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
This thing trimmed.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
I've got the power out, trying to slow down. Gear down.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Okay, so now we've got the gear down. First 15 degrees of flaps into the white arc.
Sink rate. Sink rate.
I'm trying to keep a 500 foot per minute descent. A little bit less. All right, a little bit, about 110 knots, give or take. Evidently, we got a nasty crosswind.
Sink rate. Sink rate.
Add some power. Some trim.
Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate. Sink rate.
Oh, nice slow. 30 degrees of flaps.
Sink rate. Sink rate.
And up off here. Center line. Thank God this runway's long. All right, turn the power off. Close the throttle, I mean. And there we go. Close down. Radar range. And that's the advantages. I've got this in beta. Now we got reverse thrust going. And you can stop on a dime. Welcome, Mid-America Airport. So, like I said, with any turboprop, single engine turboprop, it takes a little bit of practice to fly it. It's a pleasurable flying airplane, though. It's not hard to fly. You just got to get used to it. Get into that manual, because that is everything. They also have a very nice checklist that goes with that manual. That works pretty
Warning,
well, too.
trim.
So that's handy. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the flight. If you want to see more content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, blue skies and tailwinds.